Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you also, Dr. Starkey and Dan Hannan. It's always difficult, I'm afraid, to follow the last exponent of classical rhetorical techniques when you're speaking, and Dan exemplifies those today. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, we meet today at a moment of calamity for the Conservative Party. As others have said, we've just had our worst result for over 100 years. We lost over half of our 2019 vote and 2/3 of our seats. And worse, we have to sit and watch while Labour use the levers of government that we failed to use. And I'm afraid we have to accept the painful reality that for the time being, nobody out there is that much interested in what we think. So soon after the triumph of 2019 and of Brexit, we've fallen a long way. And I personally don't want ever to be in this position again. Now, it's true, it's right to avoid recriminations. It's right to avoid blame. There are many authors for this disaster. But it is also right to be angry about what's happened. For this catastrophe was entirely foreseeable and was indeed foreseen by many. I admit I feel angry myself. I came into politics to help deliver Brexit, as Mark kindly said. Having succeeded in getting it done and digging us out of the mess with Boris that one generation of Tory leadership had created, I found it hard to watch as we failed to deliver on the benefits under another. And I know I'm going to find it even harder to watch Brexit further watered down by a Labour Party that never wanted to do it in the first place. So those who decided upon the political strategy that got us here, those who stuck to it in the face of clear evidence it was failing, and those who then slandered and tried to kneecap their opponents in the party, they need to get off the stage as soon as possible and let the rest of us move on. Now, are we learning from this catastrophe? That is, I think, an open question. There is time, but we're already hearing people saying that the problem was that we tilted too far to the right and need to move back to the centre. We're already hearing people saying that the problem was untrammeled neoliberalism and free markets, and we now need a softer economics, more respectful of communities. Really? Which right exactly was this that we have lived through? Which free markets have these been? The ones that push tax and spend? The ones that pushed tax and spend to the highest ever levels, the ones that banned fracking, kept Soviet-style production targets for electric vehicles and boilers, and made our energy prices the highest in Europe, the ones that endlessly deferred to the doctrines of a foreign court rather than fix illegal migration, the ones that brought 1.5 million people into the country in 2 years and 5 million since 2010. I must have missed this right-wing paradise we've been living through. Ladies and gentlemen, no. The truth is that on virtually every issue, we have followed the collectivist zeitgeist leftwards, and we left Conservative voters nowhere else to go until, of course, the rise of Nigel Farage and Reform. And even then, instead of accepting that we'd made a political mistake in allowing a challenger on the right, we acted as if, as a party, we had some sort of divine entitlement to people's votes, and spent our time complaining about the lèse-majesté of Reform and of their voters, desperately looking for an actual alternative to the liberal collectivism that we represented. Now, we must do better than this. The electorate is never wrong. We must learn from the kicking that we've been given, and the first thing is to get serious. What does that mean? It means not immediately descending into the mudslinging of a rushed leadership election. I can't see why we shouldn't have an interim leader. and time to debate things properly. It means, as others have said, having a proper investigation into what's wrong with the party organisation at the centre and being honest with ourselves about what I can see is the party's near disintegration in many constituencies, and let's not forget the deep, deep hostility to our brand among many, many voters. But above all, it means getting serious about our own ideas. For politics is, or it should be, about ideas as much as individuals. And if we are to offer an effective critique of Labour's governance, we aren't going to achieve it simply by shouting "Yah boo" at everything they do. Take, for instance, Keir Starmer's comments in Downing Street on Friday. He wanders down Downing Street with the Renter crowd, and then perhaps he got a bit bamboozled by all those Union Jacks and had a senior moment and forgot which party he was actually leading, because he made a comment that stunned me. He said, I quote, "I want a politics that treads a little lighter on all our lives." Well, I had to laugh when I heard that. I mean, I doubt there is a single Labour MP who actually believes that. Labour's high tax, high regulation, high nannying, high hectoring, high banning manifesto is about as far from getting politics out of people's lives as anyone could imagine. And if anything convinced me that Labour's approach to government was going to be just meaningless words, then it was that comment. But how can we criticise? We pushed up taxes, we pushed up spending. It was us that made pet abduction a criminal offence and banned silent prayer by abortion clinics. It was us who tried to tell landlords which tenants they could rent to and stop them getting their property back unless the government agreed. And we too, after all, were going to ban smoking if we got the chance. So we've got to be serious about ideas. Our attack on Labour, and we absolutely must make it, our attack on Labour's got to be based on a credible set of ideas, a serious alternative proposition for how this country should be governed based on tried and tested conservative philosophy. Now that involves much more self-confidence about conservative ideas than we've shown in recent years. We need to keep on saying that conservatism is the best philosophy, and Dr. Starkey said it well. It's a philosophy that makes people freer and richer wherever it's tried. It's a philosophy to which much of the rest of the world is actually turning once again. But it's a philosophy that we lost sight of in a misguided attempt to modernize, drift left, and be all things to all men. We turned conservatism into a publicly funded support scheme for pensioners and the asset-rich in southern England. We've got to shed this baggage. We've got to get back to our core ideas. We don't have to be embarrassed about them. These ideas can still be popular in the country, and quite often in polling, when you put these ideas to people without the conservative brand attached to them, they are still popular. Across Europe, people are still voting for these ideas. What we've got to do is show how these ideas can solve the problems the country faces. We know what these problems are: a low productivity economy biased to the southeast, dependent on mass immigration, the crisis of governability that others have mentioned, weak national institutions enmeshed in a web of international treaties undermined by the quango and devolution state, the decline in belief in individual freedom and free speech, the growth in belief in group rights and controlled expression of opinion, and overall the gradual shift of the country leftwards to a collectivist mindset in which nothing can be achieved without the involvement of the state. Now, Labour are not going to reverse any of these trends. We know they're going to make them all worse. We, however, must be unashamed in saying we need to track back. We need to hold our nerve about our traditional conservative ideas and values. We need to get back to supporting free market, nation-state conservatism, freedom, the free economy, our nation and its independence. We've got to stand up for getting the government off the back of the people and of enterprise. Accepting the necessity, given what we've allowed to happen to the population and asset prices, of building millions of new houses where people need them. Winning the cultural war for our history, traditional values, free speech. Stopping immigration and building national cohesion again. And letting our governments actually govern so they can achieve all of this. These are mainstream ideas. So the way to win next time is to build the largest possible winning coalition by convincing people of the power of conservative ideas like these to solve the country's problems. For politics isn't solely about following public opinion. It's about persuasion. It's about convincing people you have the best ideas. It's about moving this centre ground your way. That means we've got to be confident. We've got to persuade people our ideas are the best ones for the country. Then, by being recognisably conservative, we will bring back the conservative voters who left us. And by showing that our ideas are the best ones to fix the country's problems, we start to bring back everybody else too. So I reject, therefore, the caricature that what I'm arguing for, that what people like me are arguing for, the caricature that all this represents would be a shift to the narrow right, a move from one narrow bit of the political spectrum to another. Rather, it's a return to mainstream conservatism, attractive, coherent, conservative ideas which can attract many, many voters. What we'll be turning away from is simply from being all things to all men. We'll be turning away only from pushing a flabby mishmash of sub-socialist ideas. We'll be turning towards offering a real alternative, a properly thought through conservative proposition and advocating it convincingly. If we can do this, for sure we can cooperate with reform. But as Dan said, if we can do this, perhaps there will be no need for reform. And if we don't do this, and instead draw the conclusion that we must tilt further to the crowded centre, such as it is, well then, we are leaving the whole political space of the right of British politics to others to reform. That way lies destruction. We are perilously close to taking some bad decisions which could end up wrecking this party for good. Now, some people will be sad about that, in the way that it's always sad to see an old war horse at the end of its days, or to watch the Fighting Temeraire pulled into port. But personally, I'm a loyalist to our ideas, not the institution. And if the party shows that it isn't interested in standing for our ideas and for conservatism, then what will be the point of it? Now, I don't think that worst case scenario has to happen. We can get the philosophy right, as I've outlined. We can get a leader and a leadership team who understand the problem and want to fix it. By 2027, we can, if we work hard, have a single party of the right again, with no competitor to its right, and with a clear philosophy and policies ready to fight an election. That is absolutely doable if we get serious now. As Lady Thatcher said, and I quote, "First you win the argument, then you win the election." There is no shortcut to this. Hold our nerve, keep the faith, and get to work. Thank you very much.